The number one question on everyone's mind. Datto, is Heart of Inmost Light still any good after the nerfs? And the answer is yes. Hoyle is still a good exotic. I think it's quite good with Titan Strand at the moment because you get multiple melee charges to boost your other two abilities quite often, which is really helpful considering the reduction in uptime post-nerf. However, Hoyle is no longer an exotic where you can just turn your brain off and spam abilities nonstop and just never be punished for messing up your combo, at least on something like Arc. You need to actually think about the sequence of abilities. You need to time things better to maximize your bonuses. It is definitely not as oppressive as it used to be on the rest of the Titan arsenal in terms of exotics, but it is still good, and I would try it out on Strand. Okay, so now that we got the important stuff out of the way, let's talk first impressions on Lightfall. Quite divisive stuff. Obviously spoilers for literally everything. Don't watch this video if you don't want spoilers. I'm not going to be talking about Season 20 stuff basically at all here. We might save that for another video or shelve it until the season recap at the end of the season. Real quick, pretty smooth launch. No big server issues or anything like that. No, the launch was not rough because you were not blessed with good RNG getting into the game. The slow opening of the servers was very much by design to keep things stable. Good stuff there. While I did get in after about 9 minutes thanks to my VIP pass, my wife was not as fortunate and I had to wait almost an hour and a half to start the campaign because I was waiting for her because we were playing the campaign together, so spare me any sort of you got in quick talk. Lightfall. Lightfall was always going to be compared to Witch Queen in terms of their narrative and their gameplay upgrades. Witch Queen was the first time it felt like Bungie put real strength into the campaign, and Lightfall was not going to fall back to how things were done in like Beyond Light or Shadowkeep as far as gameplay goes. So as far as the gameplay portion of the campaign goes, I think it was relatively close with Witch Queen. The campaign missions felt pretty good in the 3-stack, much like they did with Witch Queen, with Bungie making some health adjustments in a 3-person team so that things weren't as beefy compared to Witch Queen anyway, and that showed a little bit. The final mission, the pre-final boss encounter with us standing with Keitel, fighting against the big Cabal army marching on Vale's door with boosted Strand and Tormentors running around, that was the best of the campaign. So much fun. Exhilarating time, had a great time there. Of course, playing with Jez and Danielle certainly helped with the fun factor, and I definitely enjoyed myself much more than I did not. One thing that I did not was the constant give and take of Strand. Now, when Bungie said that they were going to promote Strand a bit more in the campaign to make sure people had a better understanding of its use, I thought it was going to be in the form of, we get the subclass pretty early, and during the course of the campaign, unlock aspects and fragments, and by the end, we have a decent chunk of it unlocked. I wasn't expecting all the fragments to get unlocked by the end of the campaign or anything like that, but, you know, maybe a couple more than what we got. Having to wait 3 weeks to completely unlock everything feels pretty bad in the short term. Obviously irrelevant in the long term, but right now, kind of feels bad. But the give and take felt bad to me as someone who wanted to use Strand. I know there's some people out there who didn't even want to touch it and they felt bad being forced into it. I don't know why you felt like that because it's really fun. But the problem seemed to be the give and take. I was stoked when I got to use it, especially with the reduced cooldowns, but the moment it was taken away, I got bummed because I wanted to play with it. Post-campaign, you actually get the subclass, and it's not really a big deal anymore, but it felt bad in the moment as someone who really enjoyed using the subclass in those moments. Tormentors are a very fun enemy to fight. They're basically a mini Rolk. I think I enjoyed them more than Lucent Brood. They're tough as hell to bring down, scary damage, scary attacks, but much like the Lucent Brood, they are very susceptible to crowd control, at least the non-boss versions are. The Berserker Super does an excellent job of crowd controlling with Suspend, and if you're in a team, it's very possible to crowd control chain a Tormentor for like 20 seconds. I did the weekly story mission at minus 40 with 2 teammates, and we crowd control chained the one that we fought, no problem. Without teammates, they are significantly more scary to fight, I would imagine. I played the campaign in a group, and I've heard that they are pretty brutal as a solo on legendary difficulty, especially some sections where you need to fight 2 of them at the same time. I don't have any commentary on the solo legendary experience, as I have yet to do it, but it definitely seems like it is a little bit harder than Witch Queen's campaign based on what I've seen. I wasn't really struggling that hard on the Witch Queen campaign as a solo after doing it in a 3-stack. In terms of the final boss fight, it didn't really feel as epic as the Savathun fight, and that's partly because of the lack of mechanics, partly because of the setting. Savathun's setting was amazing looking. Throne World, Ascendant Plane, interludes. It was very intense. Callus's setting looked like it could have been part of a seasonal activity just because that's where the Veil happened to be. I don't feel like Callus was done justice in terms of the powers he gained from the Witness, whatever they ended up being. I was expecting a bit more of a showcase here. Like, oh, let me show you the power that the Witness gave me, versus like him taking out a gun that shoots the stuff that comes out of Caretaker's backpack. Phase 2 was a nice touch. I liked having a Phase 2, but he felt weak in this state because of low HP values. He didn't really feel like much of a threat. I would have liked to have seen less HP in Phase 1, more in Phase 2, and then just some like weird powers. Like he's supposed to be one of the most powerful beings in the game. Like Witness gave him all this strength and all this stuff, and he just kind of took out like a gun. I don't know. I feel like there could have been a little bit more there. Post-campaign content. So far, I've done the Hall of Heroes stuff that leads to the exotic glaive, and the majority of it is patrol-based content. Yay! I don't get excited by patrol-based content whatsoever. It is boring. It is not interesting. I get that Bungie is trying to introduce people to Neomuna, familiarize them with the layout and the contents of Neomuna, but some of these quest steps just go way too long. 4% for a patrol mission, 7% for a heroic public event. Come on. But I will say, when you finally do all of the things, you unlock Partition, and that mission is pretty darn cool. Got some Sparrow sections in there, fun Sparrow sections, quick little combat bits. It's really neat. But the lead up to it, doing patrols, public events, not for me. Not for me. It's very stale. Very, very stale. Neomuna itself, I think, is a pretty interesting looking place, patrol space, although I will admit I'm not the greatest critic of patrol spaces, and I honestly really don't care that much about the patrol experience pretty much at all. It does feel a bit more alive than Throne World in terms of enemy spawns, although it is aided heavily by the Vex Incursion Zone and Terminal Overload, which I'm assuming is like the wellspring of Lightfall. Terminal Overload definitely has some intensity to it, though, which I liked, but I'm not sure how much I really plan on engaging with this activity going into the future outside of just trying to level or do bounties or just stuff that I feel like I'm obligated to do. Bungie gave some lore reasons as to why the city is completely abandoned. The citizens basically uploaded themselves to the cloud and exist in a digital space as like a defense mechanism. Some people are calling that a cop-out. Some people are like, oh, cool lore. You know, I personally don't really care that much. I think it's cool to just see a new setting in the Destiny world instead of just broken down buildings and whatnot. But I don't have the strongest of opinions on patrol things. It looks neat. It's a neat setting. That's all I really got. The strike is pretty good as far as strikes go. Don't have really that much else to say on it. Thought it was pretty solid. That is basically all I have for the gameplay portion. It was close with Witch Queen. I didn't have to do that much grinding outside of the campaign, minus the part where in the middle of the campaign, Bungie literally tells you to grind a couple of things because you probably won't be high enough level. Besides that, pretty smooth experience in terms of all that stuff. So now we come to the story. I'm not a lore guy. We know this. My opinion on the story does not ultimately matter that much. But I do think narratively, we had some misses. The top things I've seen discussed are Nimbus, Osiris, and the Veil Pursuit with like a little bit of Strand. The story had 4 major things going on all at once. We had the Callous Witness plotline, we had the Strand plotline, we had the side story of the Vex invading, and we had the Cloud Striders. And it did feel like a bit much to try to cram into one expansion story. The Cloud Striders felt okay. I understand their existence when it comes to Neptune and Neomuna lore. They're protectors. Every place needs protectors. But at the same time, I am the equivalent of an 80-year-old man when it comes to Destiny. I don't really need to meet new people that much. I think their existence would have been fine as side characters or something like that, but we have a lot of characters already in the game that could probably use some screen time. And I think I feel like this because I didn't get a lot out of Nimbus and Rohan. I don't know how much. I feel like they added to my experience. Rohan, as a character, was fine, but we barely got to know him or anything out of his relationship with Nimbus other than Rohan is Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon, and Nimbus is the jovial rookie without a care in the world and thinks they know everything. It was basically like Bungie assumed that we know how this kind of relationship goes in media in general. And they were like, you get it, right? Grizzled veteran, jovial rookie, you get it. And then they just didn't really build on it that much. If you didn't see Rohan's sacrifice coming, I felt like it was pretty telegraphed, even for me, especially once you got to the mission itself. He was gone as quickly as he showed up, so I didn't have time to get invested in the character to have any sort of an emotional response to his sacrifice. This is just the unfortunate side effect of having to try to cram in so much in such a small window of time. No cutscene about Nimbus being reckless and having to be saved by Rohan, arguments, no real tension, no tense moments. So I didn't really feel much. Nimbus, on the other hand, I'm not as mad as other people are, but there are some things that drove me up a wall. First off, the voice itself, I didn't have any issues with the voice acting, really. I know some people took issue with some of the audio effects on their voice. This didn't bother me a ton, but I know it's just a piece of feedback I saw a lot, so I wanted to address it. It was mainly the directing and the personality of the character. I get it. They're the rookie, they're careless, take risks, trying to be funny, joke, quip. I get it. This is probably the most serious things have ever been in the franchise. The apocalypse is on our front door, and Nimbus is out here cracking jokes about how Callus is ugly in front of Keitel. Yo, maybe read the room? Maybe they don't understand the severity of the situation. They're just very naive, but dude, not the time. I know Bungie has always tried to inject some humor into the game in some way to make it not 100% serious all the time. But this is a pretty serious time, and I don't feel like they've had many times outside of Cade in D1 where they nailed it pretty on the dot. Finch was also sort of this way, but I think people let it slide because the rest of Witch Queen was really good, so they're like, okay. Although Imaru was not it at all. But Nimbus just got on people's nerves. They were a bit too childish. I feel like Rohan's death got a couple of lines of seriousness, and then Nimbus was right back to trying to crack jokes and just be too upbeat. And I think at this point, I'd rather go without comedic relief or an attempt at comedic relief if what we're going to get are duplicates of Failsafe and the dude from IO that I can't remember his name, Asher Mir, Finch, and Nimbus. In the post-campaign, Nimbus gets a bit better, but by then you're already kind of zoned out. Osiris, on the other hand, look, dude, I know you're pissed about losing your light. You can't really be in the fight anymore. You can't do much for yourself. That does not mean you get to turn into a whiny little bee. Okay, you don't get to push that anger onto us. That's something you gotta handle. You go talk to a therapist. Just very whiny. And I get the urgency. We gotta get to the Veil before Callus and the Witness, but man. And then we have the Veil itself. The Veil is important because it is important. The Witness wants it, and if the Witness wants it, then it is important that we stop the Witness because that is important. If Bife is coming out here saying he doesn't know what the Veil is, what hope do I have? and it's probably intentional that we don't find out that much about the Veil right now. I know there's been some tidbits in some of the post-campaign Hall of Heroes stuff with the old Cloud Striders and all that. But, y'all, we got one expansion left. Final Shape. And if Bungie's giving themselves 8 missions per expansion, I'm not really sure how you're going to give justice to the Witness, Xivu Wrath, and now Nezarec, who makes an appearance in the new strike. Xivu can probably get shelved for the future. Let's be real. Not enough there for Xivu just yet. They're probably going to focus on the Witness. Maybe Nezarec is a raid boss. I don't know. But, man, I'm a bit skeptical now because Bungie has somehow managed to introduce even more questions during a time where I do really feel like we should be getting answers. And maybe we'll get those answers over the year. Maybe this year is about finding out why the Witness cares about the Veil. What is the Veil? Cares about the Traveler so much. Or maybe that's all gotta wait until the Final Shape. I don't know. But I kind of feel like we're in let's get answers territory, not ask more questions territory. We're in super uncharted territory. I understand if the Vanguard have no clue what the hell is going on, but I'm kind of over the cliffhangers with no answers stuff. Defeating Callus was the only thing we got out of the campaign, and I'm kind of sad he's gone, because I thought Callus was neat, but even in the story, he didn't get a whole lot. You know, we'll get the Veil. I'm trying to get the Veil. I swear, bro, we're going to get it. Oh, I'm dead. The ending to Witch Queen was satisfying because it felt like the goals were clear. Stop Savathun, and we got some cool moments along the way. We got like a little twist at the end. We got some answers. We got some info. But here it's like Callus is dead now, and the Witness opened a portal to somewhere. I'm still confused. I don't know how much we really progressed, and I have no idea if I'm going to find out anything next week, next month, next year. Best part of the campaign was anytime I was seeing Callus and the Witness, period. These are the characters I am most invested in. I care most about these events. Spare me with the Vex interlude in the middle of the campaign. I know, the citizens of Neomuna, they're under attack. Cyber attack from the Vex. They're taking advantage of the chaos. The Cloud Arc is under attack. I am not emotionally invested in the people of Neomuna. And while that doesn't mean they don't deserve to be saved, this entire thing probably could have been cut out, and I think it would have been fine, although, again, I realize that Bungie needs something for us to do in terms of the patrol experience. Maybe it could have just been the Shadow Legion, considering they're already there. They're already invading the planet. Maybe Bungie was worried about Cabal fatigue. I don't want new things to get invested into. I want the thing that I'm already invested into to pay out. And I think that's where some of this disconnect is coming from. I'm not invested in the Vex. They're not the main threat. Callus is, the Witnesses. That's what I want. Focus on the target. I wanted more Callus. I wanted more Witness. That's what I was aiming for. I don't care about the Vex coming to Neomuna. I don't care. I want Callus. I want Witness. We had all this urgency through the campaign, and I feel like I didn't even get to comprehend what was happening, and then it's over. Things weren't established enough to understand why we needed to be so urgent, other than the Witness wants a thing, and we need to make sure that he doesn't get the thing. And then we beat Callus, and he still gets the thing, because apparently he can control our ghost. Like, why couldn't the Witness just have shown up at the Veil to take control? Regardless of what ends up happening, it just ends. No breakdown of the situation, no idea what's happening, nothing. You gotta save some for Final Shape. Okay. But, like, this is how you're leaving us? I've seen parallels to Infinity War Part 1. You know, it's like kind of a two-parter ending type deal. But Infinity War had a lot more build-up and understanding of the stakes. In Lightfall, Osiris is basically saying, the Witness is going to get the Infinity Stones. We got to stop him. And then we're like, wait, what are the Infinity Stones? What do they do? Why are those important? And then instead of explaining, Osiris is like, quick, he's going to get them. I think that's everything story for me. I'm sure I could keep going on a few more things, but if you really want story feedback, you know, Bife dropped a bomb on his channel. I linked it in the description. Was this the worst thing ever, like some people are making it out to be? No, of course not. Were there things I didn't like? Yeah. I didn't even talk about how much Strand was pushed during the story, but again, that felt like by design because Bungie wanted to teach people Strand. Although people are saying more that the story felt like Strand, the story, and even the execution of Strand in terms of its existence and how we learn to control it felt a little cheesy. This go with the flow, you're the river type stuff. I don't know. Let's move on. What's next? Mods. The revamped mod system. I haven't really gotten to give this the look that I really want to give it, the deep dive. I was originally going to make my mod video first and then my first impressions, but the demand for this was so high that I switched it around. Bungie had the job of trying to take two different sets of mods and combine them into one unified system. Not only that, but it seems like they wanted to simplify things a considerable amount due to how daunting it could be to look at all of the mods and try to figure things out on your own. They want people to not be scared of build crafting. They're also taking some initiative with the seasonal artifact by giving a bunch of mods that all go together that don't really require that much thinking. Pick all the solar ones if you're solar, pick all the void ones if you're void, pick all the strand ones if you're strand. This makes build crafting much less intimidating for the average player. It's going to get them much more involved. I'm hoping it will anyway. I'm hoping the average player can realize that in Season 20, Firebolt's good, Void Weapon's good, and Strand Weapon's good. But a lot of those flare mods, those mods that were the main part of a build, they're gone. And in their place is nothing. At least right now, there's not much there, besides the seasonal artifact. There's a good foundation to build on top of now, and I hope that Bungie plans on introducing more mods as the year goes on. But those who did understand the system in the past are now left with a less interesting mod and build crafting world. The equivalent of those staple mods, those main mods that made a build, are now in the seasonal artifact. And my worry is that build crafting is just going to completely consist of what's in the artifact and not that much more. Newer or inexperienced build crafters are likely going to understand the system much more, but it feels like some of the depth has been removed and the ability to get creative isn't as there as it used to be. But this is really the most comfortable I feel talking about the system without exploring it further. Again, I do really need to do an in-depth dive before I can talk about it more. How about Strand? I've only played on my Titan, so I can only comment on Titan at the moment, but I am quite enjoying my time with Strand, ironically enough, using a nerfed Heart of Inmost Light. The super is pretty darn strong. Woven Mail combined with severing an enemy gives huge survivability benefits, and we don't even have all of the fragments unlocked yet, nor do I have an optimized build, optimized mods, nor do I have Quicksilver Storm's Catalyst active. So I'm really looking forward to completing my development and seeing what Strand Titan is capable of. I feel like I've seen barely any Warlocks. It's been mostly Titans and Hunters, but the little feedback that I have heard has been pretty good. Hunters seem to be the unhappiest with Strand because of grapple cooldowns, but I do think a part of that is because people likely aren't optimized yet, and we also don't have all of the fragments. But also, chaining grapples isn't really that important in moment-to-moment gameplay, so that aspect can maybe feel like a bit of a waste. I don't need to chain grapples in the seasonal battleground or anything like that. A lot of criticism is that the grapple cooldown is too high, but having not played with it myself just yet on Hunter specifically, I can't really comment. I think a neat idea could be that if you don't use the melee attack portion of the grapple, that some energy could be refunded since you're using it purely for mobility. Whether or not that's actually needed is another story, one that I would like to investigate for myself. My Titan cooldowns haven't felt too bad, but again, I've been using Heart of Inmost Light and a grenade-focused mod setup. Don't forget that attaching to a Tangle means a free grapple, no cooldown activated, so try to incorporate Tangles into your movement for more grapple opportunities. Update, Bungie has unlocked all Strand fragments for purchase. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, that change has actually gone live. But they're keeping an eye on things before the raid, which is them basically saying, if you guys find something and you break it, we are going to disable it for the raid, which is a good call anyway. Good change. Loadouts, I'm pretty much giving an A. There are only the minorest of gripes here, like having to wall of wishes my way back to the icon that I want for my loadout if I missed it. Maybe having the ability to rename the loadout to whatever I want instead of the presets. But those are not the biggest deal in the world. Guardian ranks, are also okay for now. But I don't think they were intended to be this insanely in-depth new feature. It's mainly for newer players in order to guide them. It seems like we'll be resetting our rank back to rank 6 after every season, and if that is true, that is a bit of a buzzkill. Take out the bit. That would be a buzzkill. The majority of rank 6 objectives are incredibly simple, not really the most time-consuming, save for a whopping 750 commendation score. That is a lot to have to go repeat, if we do have to repeat it, and I hope is not serving specifically as a time gate to slow down people from getting higher Guardian ranks. I hope I'm missing something there. I can give a bit more insight towards the end of the season once we unlock higher ranks and kind of see what's needed of us. If the climb back up to higher ranks after a season reset is quick, I might not mind too much. But if it's going to be weeks of grinding commendation score of all things, then I'm not going to be stoked. It also feels a bit weak to be a player with thousands of hours, hundreds of raid clears, dungeon clears, GMs, Conqueror 7, so many gilded titles, top triumph score in the world, and I'm rank 6. You know what I mean? Speaking of commendations, I don't really know how much this is going to add to my experience in the game. It's certainly not going to take away much, but how much it's really going to add, I'm not too sure. This isn't something I plan on taking super seriously, as it feels like more of a thing for when LFG is in the game versus just match-made activities. I'm sure there's some stuff that I missed. You know, as usual, music, audio, all that stuff, phenomenal. Visuals are great. Everything looks cool, sounds good. Got a few people asking about reissued gun models for Neomuna weapons. I'm Eververse status on that. I don't care anymore. You're going to delete 99% of them anyway. It's not something that impacts the enjoyment of the game for me personally. If it does for you, then I'm sorry about that. For me, it really doesn't. Overall, campaign experience and the slight post-campaign experience that I have done was underwhelming compared to Witch Queen. I did have pretty high expectations for Lightfall, both narratively and gameplay-wise, hoping to see Bungie build on the success of Witch Queen. Gameplay-wise, I don't think things got that much worse. I don't know how much better it really got, which, you know, Witch Queen, pretty high bar. They got close. Narratively, I'm back to being frustrated with another, like, what is even happening anymore moment. And I really wasn't satisfied with how a good chunk of things went. With only 8 missions to work with, I'd rather Bungie stay on target for Final Shape. The big 3 only. I don't care about anything else. Don't give me new characters. If you want to give me a new destination, Witness Hideout, Xivu Hideout, Nezarec Hideout. I don't want side plots. I don't care about the Vex. Don't do so many small things. Do the one big thing. Witness. I know I've been saying Bungie is in get to the finish line mode, but I didn't mean that quite as literally as I felt like the campaign felt, with Osiris basically shouting the whole time, get to the finish line. Bungie did say in an update posted very, very recently that the next year of seasons will go into, quote, the Witness's origins, its objective, and the ways we can thwart it and its disciples throughout the Season of the Deep, as well as Seasons 22 and 23 later this year, end quote. Which, like, fine. Let's stay on track. But the expansion storyline payout wasn't high enough. I'm a bit skeptical on mods at the moment, but I think if Bungie continues to introduce mods over time, that the system will get better, introduce some of that complexity back into the game. I'm really enjoying Strand Titan right now. Loadouts are great. Guardian ranks and commendations, I'm just whatever on, because I'm not really their target audience. And also, to everyone who complained about the Strike playlist getting more difficult, and it was going to make the game impossible. and so unfun. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that you are a gigantic baby. Oh, just such a big baby. Have you played it yet? Give it a whirl. Oh, I didn't get to play the revamped strikes yet. They didn't come up when I was grinding. Paying $20 to skip the campaign. Just gonna try to squeeze a few more bucks out of people, huh? I'm not surprised at this point anymore. Probably should have just been a free thing. I don't know why we still gotta have character-based progress instead of account-based for some stuff. People have been asking for years. I looked for a while for where Bungie spoke about the need for another expansion after Lightfall to really finish up the saga. I could have sworn they said something along those lines of needing more time, and boom. Quote, needed to add an additional unannounced chapter after Lightfall to fully complete our first saga. Fine. My question, which will never be answered, is how come? How come? This is the part where I ask a million follow-up questions. It doesn't matter. To me, from the outside looking in, it feels like had things been kept focused on the Witness, on Callus, that another 8 story missions would not be necessary to finish telling this story. Obviously, we'll find out next year what they had delayed an extra year to tell us, but yeah. You know, likely things ended up being COVID related, swap to work from home, production delays, all this kind of stuff is the main culprit, likely. I don't want to speculate too much on just that one sentence. But now I'm really curious as to how the final shape is going to end things if they needed to make another expansion to finish telling the story when this story felt like it could have been compressed into half of the missions that we ended up getting. I didn't even talk about the radial mass this whole time. Still not really sure what's going on with that, but it felt like it existed to kill time in the story. Rohan sacrificed himself to destroy this thing, and I still don't feel like I even comprehend why it's a big deal in the first place, other than the Witness wanted it or they were going to use it. Although a second playthrough of the campaign will maybe help solve that issue. I'll have a better understanding. Usually a second playthrough helps with that. I think something like Neomuna, New Destination, would have felt more interesting in the past when we didn't have as much of a story built up. But when all I want is the finish line, everything else just seems like a distraction. This felt like it would have worked a year or two ago. The stakes aren't as high yet. But when we're at the end, I just think it's time to focus up. You know, save the Vex plot lines for seasonal content. You know what I mean? I get, you know, Stasis maybe is a little more heavy-handed, but let's cut the fat. Cut the Vex out of there. I don't care about the Vex. Speaking of cutting it, let's just cut it there. Very interested in seeing how Bungie brings this ship to port, because I'm losing confidence. It's already a tall enough task to try to wrap up a 10-year saga, but after this showing, I think it's an even taller one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
If the Witness can just go in there and take a look around, I would also like a tour.
It's the least he could do for us. Okay, so we're just back here, no problem.
Recap.
Everything's fine.
I'm waiting for all the NPCs to just hit us with that breakdown.
That was it? That was the end of the campaign? No.
Yeah, probably.
Dude, no.